Hello everybody, it's Max with Crypto Talk now. A while back we put out a poll asking our community which particular ISO would you like to see us cover that we don't normally cover. And with over 70% of the vote, it was Hedera's Hbar. Now, me personally, Hedera's Hbar has been on my particular watch list for a while, and it even jumped from there to my particular short list. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into this particular deep dive, and on top of that, not just mention about my particular take on Hbar, but also show you guys some recent updates for just that, Hbar. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to full screen this. And if anything, check this out before we get into some of the prices. That is pretty appealing, 3 cents. But that's not the only appealing part about it, being under 4 cents, I should say. Gotta start off with this. Hedera's hash graph, a green crypto to watch. Now, of course, this is published back on July 6th of 2022. But anything, I'm going to highlight some key things that stood out to me when it comes to Hbar. So it states, with the green movement and resulting clamors for climate protection, regulators, as we know, are seeking stronger measures to safeguard themselves. And if anything, look at this. It states that specifically it's a no-brainer that there's real need for what? Green cryptos. And you're going to start seeing this pop up quite a bit, especially going to the future. Let's face it. There's so many different green initiatives. So it says the scalability of the crypto world depends on how clean the protocols can be. Perfect example of this is, Bitcoin basically, last I heard, for, 2021, at one point, there was more electricity used to mine Bitcoin than the entire country of Sweden used in electricity, right? So obviously there's a great need to go green. So what about the whole thing in regards to Hedera's hash graph, right? So Hedera's hash graph network is specifically a carbon negative network that acts as a distributed ledger for transaction fees and payments of all types, including in-app payments and micropayments. Like it mentions right here, is also used for network protections. Devs can basically use Hbar to build a secured application that has real-time consensus, and on top of that, graph the blockchain, hence why it's called Hedera's hash graph. Now, if you need a visualization of that, you should look at, for instance, how a traditional blockchain looks, and that particular difference when it comes to Hedera's hash graph is something else. So we'll get more into some of these specifics, but look at this. The technology is based on what is referred to as a directed acyclic graph. Now, when I went more into it, it says that it's a technology that allows the network to achieve blazing fast transaction speeds. Now, I want to go ahead and pull this up real quick and jump to this. So, if you're wondering about this, and I get it, some of you guys already know about it, so on. So, a directed acyclic graph, aka DAG, basically is a way of structuring data often used for data modeling and increasingly as a consensus tool in just that, cryptocurrencies. Now, if you're wondering, well, what is a directed acyclic graph? It explains it right here. So it says, directed acyclic graphs consist of vertices and edges. There are no blocks, unlike a blockchain. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because you got to understand, there's so many different blockchains out there, right? So, if I come up with a review and it's just like, oh yeah, check this out, this is this particular blockchain, for a lot of people that are already invested in a lot of this, like, okay, great, why do a review on this? What stands out, right? Well, this is what stands out. So instead of the traditional approach from usual blockchains, it says transactions are recorded as vertices, and these are recorded on top of one another. This is what makes Hedera's hash graph really unique. It says transactions are submitted to the DAG by nodes, much like a blockchain. In order to submit transaction, a node must complete a proof of work task. In a DAG, every new transaction must reference previous transactions in order to be accepted onto the network in a similar manner. to the way in which blocks on a blockchain contain references to previous blocks. When a transaction is referenced by another transaction, it is confirmed. In order for that transaction to be confirmed, it must be referenced by a further transaction, and of course, so on. Now, it gives more and more information about this and so on, like there are no transaction fees because there are no miners. Think about that, right? We always talk about the proof of work and so on. You don't really see that with this, because it says on the previous sentence, DAGs have a number of perceived advantages. Transaction speeds are as high as processing is not limited by block creation. And of course, the lack of mining has huge environmental benefits. We kind of get the gist of how that works. So by having no transaction fees, there are no, like it says, there's no miners. So that is really, really something else. Because think about it, how many different blockchains have just that? Some form of a transaction fee, right? ETH especially, right? Ethereum is just like, it's ridiculous. The gas fees are, like I mentioned, before many times. I paid as much as $300 plus in late 2021 going into early 2022 for various different ERC20 tokens. Yeah, unfortunately, those were meme tokens, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys got into that, got burned, so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to jump back, and I want to get into some of these specifics. Now, Hedera is based on technology popularly referenced, like we mentioned with DAG, but check out this transactions per second. Blazing fast transaction speeds, up to 10,000 transactions per second. I'm a big fan of XDC, and one thing that really stood out for XDC is 2,000 transactions per second. Shoot, this blows that out of the water, to say the least. I'm not downplaying XDC by any means. I think, if anything, a lot of these different cryptos bring a whole different element to the table when it comes to just that, being diversified. Not that all of them compete with each other. Maybe, like Ripple and XLM to a sense kind of do compete, whether people want to agree with that or not. But my thing is, I like to be diversified in some of these ISOs. So what makes this stand out? Again, we're going to get more into that, but some of these things are definitely it. So, excuse me. It states that with up to 10,000 transactions per second without the need for mining, it also presents users with low fees of only 0.0001 per transaction. Super cheap. Hedera not only boasts lightning fast transactions at low cost, it also has energy efficiency 885,000 times higher than that of Bitcoin. Efficiency, that's like just not only knocking it out of the park, but sending this thing to Mars or Pluto, right? Every user burns just 0.001 kilowatt hours of energy per transaction. In comparison, transactions in Bitcoin consume 885 kilowatts of energy. Here's the particular breakdown. So for instance, you see Bitcoin on the far left, 3 plus TPS, Ethereum extremely slow, 12 plus. Of course, Hbar just blows it away. Average fees for Bitcoin 22.57 cents. ETH 19.55, but let's face it, like I was getting to the point, and a lot of you guys do the same thing. If you wanted to basically, get some of those specific, ERC20 tokens and so on, you would have to stay up late to 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, because there's just simply less network use at those times, right? To help offset some of those East gas fees. You don't have to worry about that with the likes of Hbar. Very, very cheap. 0.0001. Transaction confirmation, you get a finality of 3 to 5 seconds with Hedera compared to, in some cases up to a whole hour, maybe even longer with like Bitcoin and so on. And you got some of these other examples, right? All right. So there's more and more examples about the nitty gritty and so on and so forth. I highly recommend you take more of a look into it. Like for instance, there's some of these pros and cons, right? I will mention some of this right here. So like for instance, the hash graph is faster than most major blockchains such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. It can handle 10,000 TPS. It's low, predictable. Fees cost only, for instance, fractions of a penny compared to Bitcoin with some of these particular fees. Same with Ethereum. Hedera's hash graph supports object-oriented programming language like Solidity and can be used for smart contracts, right? Hedera Hashgraph provides a high level of security on all networks. Now, of course, it has some cons. Hedera Hashgraph is patented and thus does not allow forking. In some ways, that's actually really good. The network's development is rather centralized, as is governed by 39-member council. And of course, currently Hedera's Hashgraph can only handle 10,000 TP. Only handle. I mean, come on transactions that involve smart contracts. Well, that still blows all those other legacy systems out of the water, right? So there's many use cases, right? And here's one specific, right? So it says Hedera is currently being used by Boeing. Like, who doesn't know about Boeing? I mean, come on. Building, the world famous 747 jets. They build famous airplanes for World War II, going even to this day, right? Boeing definitely has not only the military contracts, they have the commercial contracts. You name it. I even have a friend that lives in the Washington area. He works for Boeing. You have the Deutsche Telekom, Google, right? I mean, these are some big players, right? So, there's tokenomics, just like on anything, and I highly recommend you take more of a look into it. If you're wondering about that total supply, 50 billion, circulating supply, 21 billion, market value, 0.06. All these things are really specific, to say the least, right? But on top of that, it says, is it a good investment? Well, you are going to have to draw your own conclusion in regards to that. I want to get into some of the nitty-gritty specifics that I saw that I definitely want to point out. Now, what I want to point out is this right here. There's this particular update, right? A lot of you guys know who Frankie Candles is and so on. He does work with BitBoy Crypto. It says Hbar is leading the way for Web3 and has some huge legacy companies behind it. Watch the full breakdown here, but he gives you kind of a taste of that. It's only about 30 seconds, and then we'll come right back.
Hbar is leading the way for Web3 and has some of the biggest companies on the planet behind it. Its main selling point is that it is an enterprise-grade public network, not a cryptographic project at all. It's made to be a public ledger and create blockchains for business and governments. Sorry, Satoshi. In fact, Hedera is listed as a member of the World Economic Forum. The CEO of Hedera, Brett McDowell, is a longtime tech head and was part of the infamous PayPal mafia that's played a huge role in shaping Silicon Valley. Hbar is leading.
All right, so that was just a nice little, intro, if you will, on what they're, leading to do. On top of that, some of these things caught my eye, and I thought I would share it with you guys, right? Because if anything, it's not just about, for instance, just doing a regular review. You got to get some, modern, up-to-date news, right? So it says, what a way to start 2023. We've been working with LG Electronics. LG Electronics, I have an LG TV, you know what I mean? And a lot of you guys do and so on, right? That's a big player. I mean, when I think of, the best TVs in the world, I'm literally, it's for the longest time I was, sold on it's Samsung or bust, right? I'm still a huge Samsung fan, but, LG is basically they're right there with them. They really are. I understand some people are gonna debate me on that, and that's fine. But yeah, LG, that's a world-renowned company. Really, a lot of people can identify someone. It says, so for instance, it said we've been working with LG on this for a while, and we're delighted it's finally being announced at CES. You can read up on that particular Hedera announcement in regards to the partnership. Yeah, new particular partnership of Hedera, and it's basically LG Art Labs' latest enhancements benefit NFT artists and art lovers. It gives more of a breakdown into it and so on. But I mean, it's just impressive to see these particular partnerships, right? So, if you want to take more of a deep dive into it, you can. But, I just want to mention some of these specific things. Another thing that really impressed me about, for instance, Hbar, I know there's a lot to dive in when it comes to Hbar. I don't want to turn this into a 2-hour-long video. But it says, why specifically Hbar? Reason number 99. This NASA proposal saying why to use Hbar. Hedera, is a public distributed ledger technology that solves all of the challenges and inefficiencies of blockchain. Unlike a blockchain, right, Hedera's Hashgraph provides for transaction speeds of up to 500,000 per second. And when I blew this up, you see, for instance, some of these key highlights. Maybe you guys don't really see this because it's not zoomed in enough. When they do this on Twitter, for instance, where these particular ones take them from a screenshot of the phone, it can't zoom in as much, so I do apologize for that. But anyway, it says, For instance, they must be able to know with 100% certainty that the correct version of a set of engineered drawings or what the current functional capacity of distributed resources might be at any given time. They need one source of truth. And it goes on to mention that the solution to these scenarios is a technology that C10 Global is invested in called, Hedera Hashgraph. Hedera is a public distributed ledger technology, aka DLT, that solves all the challenges and inefficiencies of the blockchain, commonly associated with Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Yeah, those are our problems. Unlike blockchain, Hedera Hashgraph provides for transaction speeds up to 500,000 per second, which of course is different from what I reported with you guys and so on. Maybe that's just like it can get up to that. Maybe the other one that we reported about, 10,000 TPS. Maybe that's, I guess you could say maybe that's just the average. You got to keep in mind some of these ones can have like a more of a burstable connection, if you will. So it says, for instance, up to 900,000 a day just in the beta phase. So maybe that's something that they're going more into. I don't know the specifics on that, but that sounds incredibly impressive. Technically, if they do achieve that, that would make them actually faster than a Visa payment, right? So that right there for me, oh man, I'm thinking that I'm getting that much more bullish on this. So it states the highest known level of security, right? And then on top of that, a world-class governance council that includes Boeing, Google, and IBM, among others, as invested managing members. A little bit more in regards to this. You have, for instance, the evolution of possibilities, right? Look at where Hedera Hashgraph basically is. It says, they attribute cryptocurrency, virtual voting consensus, controlled immutability, no forks, smart contracts, decentralized file storage, micropayments. I know that's a lot to take in, but it states specifically, I know this is hard for you guys to read, so I'm going to read it for you. Is a fast, fair, and secure decentralized public ledger with cryptocurrency, smart contracts, and file storage services that can process hundreds of thousands of transactions per second on a single shard. No, not that type of shard. Shard with a D, with low fees, enabling practical micropayments. Now, I like this part on the far right. Unlike blockchain, Hedera Hashgraph provides for transaction speeds up to 500,000 per second. And when we get more into it and so on, you have this breakdown of how this all kind of works out. Some of these partnerships are really huge, like those council members, right? LG, Google, some big names to say the least. Boeing, right? Wallets and custody providers. A lot of you guys, for instance, use Ledger, like a Nano Ledger and so on, to put your crypto on cold storage. On top of that, you have token issuers, right? So, some of these ones, I'm not completely familiar with all those, but if anything, maybe you guys are a little bit more familiar with that. I think I've heard of Tune.fm. Exchanges, obviously, some of these really do stand out, like Bittrex, Huobi, and so on. And then, of course, how does the standards and systems integrators? IBM is definitely probably the biggest name in there, as far as I'm concerned. And then again, more and more of these particular partnerships and lists and so on. I mean, Google. Why would Google be partnered up with Hedera if they thought it was some garbage cryptocurrency coin? LG, IBM, Boeing, for crying out loud, right? Really impressive partnerships. That even if I didn't even take more of a deeper dive into this, that would really impress me, to say the least. I would want to know more about that, right? So, my thing also is this right here. And, this is part of what I refer to as cheat sheet 2.0. Okay. So Hedera is definitely on the list to become ISO 222 compliant. When you see these particular asterisks, right? I blew it up a little bit more. And if anything, look at this. This is really something else. So Hedera Hashgraph, consensus service, 0.401 per transaction. Again, just that's like nothing. And 10,000 TPS. Obviously, in this beta, I gotta look more into that. You can do insanely high. Again, think about, for instance, Visa. I think Visa is like 17 to 25,000, maybe even higher than that, burstable. That is really, really impressive. And of course, it's been on my short list for the longest time. And then combine that with this, it's currently ranked 39th. You know, we talk about a lot of these ISOs. You know, for instance, I just did a XDC video, right? XDC is like 81, 83 on the top 100. You have Quant sitting at 31. Hedera is not that far away from it, guys. 39. And at these particular price levels, I mean, you know, that risk to reward ratio to me is just worth it. I can't give you official financial advice. I'm just saying what I'm gonna most likely do, you know, personally, is I'm going to finally enter into a position for Hbar. I just, you know, just to me, this makes sense that in a bull run, this is one that you want to add to your portfolio. I mean, come on, under 4 cents, you have a circulating supply of 25 billion 202 million. 50% of that circulating supply is out there. The max and total supply is basically double what that circulating supply is, and so on. We're just going to take a brief moment before we close out to show you how they did, for instance, back in 2021. On September of 2021, all-time highs was about roughly 51 cents. For me personally, I'm not looking at this as just being something that, you know, the goal is to get to that particular all-time high. I think with all these partnerships, just looking at it from the outside in, I think this is one that's going to be a really good long-term hold. I understand a lot of people, of course, will take profits on the way, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But, you know, I just heard so many good things about them for the longest time. People would tell me, you know, Max, if you're into all these ISOs, why aren't you into Hbar? And I couldn't agree more. I'm very, very convinced that it's definitely one that stands out. They are not a token. Technically, they're not even a blockchain, right? So, you know, go to, for instance, Hedera.com. We'll do that here for a second. And, you know, it gives you, you know, like all these explanations, like, for instance, 10 times faster than blockchain alternatives. They got that carbon negative incentives and so on. I should say incentive, but, you know, to me, that's an incentive to get into it, to say the least. But, you know, always predictable gas fees. They give you a breakdown, for instance, of all these particular things. They have the Hedera Ecosystem Week, which is basically already happened. You can watch a replay. I know I will. But nonetheless, you know, let me know what you guys think about it. I think you guys already voiced your concerns, to say the least, about Hedera. And, you know, we're going to see what kind of reception we get. We got to keep in mind, you know, we're really growing here as, you know, CTN Crypto Talk now. And there's only so much time, I guess you could say, to cover everything. I mean, we cover basically quant quite often, as you guys know. We do try to do as many XDC updates as we can. You know, it's been a little while, but there's an XDC update and so on. We still want to cover XRP and so on, but from a content creator's perspective, XRP is basically one of those that's kind of, you know, a very saturated content creation market, if you will. So we have roughly about 6, 7, 8 different ones that we got to cover on a regular, like ALBT. I know you guys are still looking for stuff like that. So depending on the reception on this, if we see there's a lot of demand for this, we'll try our best to cover it quite often. So I don't want to, like, you know, overpromise and underdeliver, like, you know, some projects basically do. I'm not going to mention their names. But nonetheless, guys, it has been a pleasure to do a deep dive and recognize the community's, you know, wants and needs in regards to just that Hedera's Hbar. So hopefully you enjoy this particular deep dive / review and appreciate some of those particular updates. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you appreciate content like this, whether it's Hbar or Quant and some of these other ones, please hit that bell notification. If you want a live show where you just simply want to hear more, you know, or get more content like this, join us on just at the live show. It's at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, every single day of the week. So really appreciate each and every one of you guys. Without you, we would not be where we're going here. We're making a lot of headway, and can't thank you guys enough for watching our content or listening to it, especially if it's on like a Bluetooth on, you know, driving wherever in your car and so on. So may you all have a blessed day, everybody. We will see you on the next one.